All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Free Real Estate Advice Friday. This is episode number 66. And today I'm happy to say that we have a guest. As I say almost every week, I'm always trying to have guests, but it's a bit of a hustle to book them and coordinate and everything. But my guest today is someone I met in one of my coaching groups, Jody Garcia out of KW in Georgetown, Texas. And we're going to have a pretty brief conversation today about where she's doing business in Texas and how it's very different than where I'm doing business here in New Jersey. Thought it would be somewhat interesting for anyone. Want to point out to and thank everyone that we've had a ton of new subscribers. So hopefully a few will stop by today. And I really appreciate that. And hopefully we're engaging. As always, please feel free to comment on whatever platform you're watching on, and I will see it, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. But without further ado, I'm going to bring in our special guest, Jody Garcia from Georgetown, Texas.
Well done, Craig. Well done.
You're
you. Professional.
Yes. So how we doing, Jody? How's Texas?
Oh, it's beginning to heat up, which I'm not happy about.
Yeah. It is here too, but that's probably a little bit different than your heat up.
Yes. Well, I understand you guys are dealing with the smoke though from Canada.
Yes.
So how's that going?
Yes, we are. Yeah. So earlier this week, I guess about 3 days ago, it started all from the Canadian wildfires, and started pretty low key, and we got used to it. But then by that night, I think that was Wednesday night, it was like apocalyptic looking, very bizarre. So everything was yellow, very hazy. I posted some videos about it on TikTok, but you can't even see like what it actually looks like here. So yeah, it's absolutely crazy. My wife commutes about 45 minutes once or twice a week, and I told her, I'm like, you should probably come home because I don't even think like the interstates are super safe. But for the most part, as I look out right now, I don't see much.
It's clearing up. That's good.
Yeah, it was really, really bad though. So as you and I talked about, I kind of wanted to bring you on today to talk a little bit about each of our businesses, but just starting with just your business, not necessarily a comparison, but tell me a little bit about your business and how you got started in real estate and how long you've been doing it.
Well, I got started because my ex-husband worked for a builder, and we were always going into houses, looking at houses. And when we bought our first house, after we closed, I read all the closing docs, which I don't think very many people do.
No.
And I went over the closing disclosure and asked questions about every single expense. So I was like, wow, this is a really comprehensive and confusing experience. And we didn't have a representative because he worked for the builder at the time that we bought the house from. So he just encouraged me after a couple of years to get my license. He was like, I meet a lot of realtors. He goes, you're sharper than most of the realtors. Because he used to do the buyer walks, like the warranty,
sure,
pre-closing on new construction. And, I'm good with numbers. I love houses. So I took my test, and I got licensed in 2007, right before the economic crash. So
tricky time. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I got my first listings in fall of 2008, and none of them sold because of everything that happened. So I came up during a hard time, and I'm still here. So that's basically how I got started.
Great. So my origin story. So you've definitely been in the game a little bit longer than I have. I was in corporate America up until about 2019.
Okay.
I got laid off once, then I got laid off again, and I said, no more. I can't do this anymore. I was also traveling a lot and doing a lot of things that I really didn't want to do. Had young kids. I wanted to be near home, and got my real estate license as like, maybe I'll do this one day, maybe not. And it's funny you mentioned like your experience buying. Like I think back to buying my first house way before I was an agent, and it's all a blur to me. Like now that I know so much about the process, I'm trying to think like, wait, did I do that when I bought a house? I can't, it's all just such a blur. But in 2019, once I got laid off that second time, I just told my wife, look, I'm not going to do another job search. I'm just going to dive into this real estate thing. And we just kind of gritted our teeth and got into it. That was a decent time to get into it in 2019.
Yeah.
Just did open houses, met all the agents, said, give me whatever you don't want to deal with. I'm desperate. I just lost my job and I need this to work. So it was very nice not having that safety net. It really made me make it work. And then of course 2020 was significantly better. 2021 was crazy, as
Mhm.
I'm sure, maybe not. 2021 was a huge year here in New Jersey. And then that was enough to kind of be like, all right, I'm in it now. So that
That's
was,
awesome.
I've been 4 years in as a full-time agent. And I really was only a part-time agent for about 3 months before this all happened. So it was a bit of a leap of faith, but it's been good.
And which
Um,
brokerage are you with? Forgive me.
I'm with Keller Williams.
Okay, perfect. Well,
Yeah.
what I was gonna say is I was part-time for a few years actually, and, I went full-time in 2010, and the first thing I did was take Bold, which is a course through Keller
Yes.
Williams where we're supposed to talk to 100 people a week,
Yep.
and that was when I jumped in, like, when I became full-time, I took Bold, and then I just hit the ground running, kinda like you said, like,
Yeah.
I didn't look back after that.
Yep. Same here. So, did you ever do Ignite? That's like Bold Light.
Yeah, no, we just did the full baptism into Bold, and then I
Yeah.
what's funny, I was on a team at the time, and my 2 partners hated Bold and were introverted, and I was like, "I need to make money, and I don't wanna spend much money in
Yeah.
advertising. I will talk to people."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I did, and I took Bold back to back, and that helped me kind of launch my full-time career.
Yeah. I mean, Bold is painful.
I love
Yeah.
it and I hate it.
Totally agree. It's not meant to be light or fun. It's meant to like teach you this is what you do if you want to be successful in this business. And then
Yeah.
once you get that success, you understand it validates everything. It makes it a little bit easier. But we had Ignite, and I did Ignite right off the bat because again, I was just trying to get started very quickly. Ignite is like a much lighter version. They're not asking much of you. It's really just like classes.
It's just
And then I
teaching
did
you.
Bold very quickly after that. And that's when I was like, oh, so this is being a full-time realtor. And same experience. I was like, I'm introverted naturally. And like, I'm confident talking about the things I know about and doing stuff like this just because I'm used to it at this point. But if it's my choice, I'll be home and just not talking. Like that would be my ideal situation. But Bold was definitely that thing that was like, okay, so this is how it works to try and make real estate work. And I'm thankful to KW for like having these things in place. It's been great. I also have to credit the agents around me because they just recognized very quickly that I was like, just whatever you don't want to deal with, just give me your, a lot of them were getting Zillow leads on listings. They're like, I don't even know what these things are. I've never called these people. And I would just take that stuff or do open houses. And yeah, like that first like 18 months, I'd say was almost entirely driven by just stuff that was given to me by agents they didn't want to deal with or doing open houses, maybe a little door knocking, a little cold calling. I
Yeah.
dropped cold calling very quickly, but I did get a listing or two out of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I got stuff out of Bold, but then I just kind of parlayed it into working my sphere, and so that's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
my niche now. However, both of us are in a group to expand
yeah,
our reach and what we do, and so I think that's, one person told me, "Why do you want to do that?" They said, "Because you work with mostly your sphere." I was like, "Yeah, but every time someone introduces me to someone else, they're another person that I like and that I
yeah,
work well with, and it all goes great." I said, "So if I can be out there more to help more people, why not?"
yeah,
I want to share my knowledge and my passion with
yep.
people that need to, make one of the biggest financial decisions of their life.
I think it's a very good point, and I think that because I actually do a lot of like online leads, but it's high volume, low conversion. But like, I want to move away from that eventually, and I
Yeah.
think what's key is like doing stuff like TikTok or Instagram or stuff like this. Is it's really just a different way to introduce yourself to people. And
Hmm.
like, I think if people just like see you talking about something, you're clearly knowledgeable, you seem like a nice person, good enough for them. Like, I think that's the way I like to fetch business because you end up working with a lot of really nice people.
Yeah.
And I will say about online leads is like they have to get through this process of like they register on my website, but like sometimes I call them, they're like, oh, I don't know, man. I just clicked on that. I really am not interested. And they're, pretty rude to people that go through that process with you. Like, oh, you are following up with me. I do remember registering on your website. You are following up with me. I was just kind of clicking on, not really interested. And then you call them a second time. They're like, oh, that's nice that you called me back. And then the third time they're,
Yeah.
converted and they're a client, but that ends up being a very nice person because they hung in there, they hung in through that initial period and we're like, I appreciate that you're calling me back. But that's always like my goal is like sphere is great because obviously you have a personal connection there, but like finding people that I enjoy working with, which I
Yes.
think I'm hoping that things like TikTok and stuff kind of bring the people like, all right, this guy looks good. I'll enjoy working with him.
I'm a big believer in doing what you're doing right now, like just having a podcast or putting this on social media. You're attracting people to you, or you're letting people observe you. And as an introvert, this is the thing to do because you only have to do it once. You're not, and then your people will find you. So I know a lot of introverts that are like, people think I can never do social media because I'm introverted. They're like, this is the easiest way to do it.
Yes.
Because it's not face to face.
Yeah. I mean, and like open houses, right? Like that's how they work. Like, cause essentially when you have like a client that's coming in unrepresented, you have like 3 minutes to just meet. You're meeting each other. And do we want to work with each other? Yes or no? And then you're both moving on. And I that's much different than like, God forbid, cold calling. That's like, to me, is like the worst for everyone involved. Like the people receiving the calls and the people making the calls.
Agreed.
So like, this is definitely what I definitely prefer. So let's talk about the area that you service. I know that you're, and forgive me, my Texas knowledge is pretty limited, although I've been to Austin. I think you're in the Austin suburbs. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, I'm in the North Austin suburbs. So I've been here since 1994. Okay. So I've been here quite a while in the Austin area, and I've been in Texas since the mid 80s. So most of my life. However, I'm from New York. I'm from upstate New York.
Where in New York?
I was born in Ticonderoga, but I lived near Lake Placid, and my mom did go to SUNY, so we were down near Utica for a while.
That's great.
Yeah, so kind of all over. We moved a lot.
My aunt and uncle were from Saranac Lake.
Oh, right, I lived in Bloomingdale, which is outside of Saranac Lake.
That's so funny. So I'm very familiar with that area. We still try and get up there occasionally. They don't live there anymore.
Yeah, that's a beautiful area. But the area I serve is Austin, like north of Austin. So the county north of it is Williamson County. Georgetown is the county seat of that county. Mm-hmm. And other than just urban sprawl, like Georgetown is the first town. I take that back, not fully, but it was a town I resonated with the most, that felt like it had its own true identity and was separate. And back in the day, it was far away from Austin, and now everything's just grown. There really is no differentiation from one town to the other. Mm-hmm. It's all urban sprawl at this point. Yep. And now people like Georgetown has been the #1 fastest growing city in the nation this year, and I think 5 of the 15 towns or cities that are the fastest growing are in Texas. So it's, this area grew exponentially through the pandemic. A lot of people decided to move here. So
now, where were the majority of those people coming from?
You know what? Surprisingly, they came from within Texas. So I think when people realized they could make a choice or make a move, there was a lot of internal moving in Texas, but then we did have a lot of people come from California. And then ironically, my younger sister was living in New Jersey. She's my half sister, so she's 10 years younger. And we had been working on her for years about move to Texas. You should move to Texas, because they were, they had an hour commute into the city one way. They have 2 smaller children, so their lives were evolving and changing. And my older sister lived here. And we convinced my younger sister to move down here. They were in the process of doing that. And then my older sister's husband got a job offer in Atlanta, and they moved. So my older sister moved in 2019, and my younger sister moved here in 2020. We closed on their house the last week that I could go to a closing because of COVID. They were like, no, after this, no more. So it was kind of a wild time, but yeah.
So in New Jersey, we've gone through something similar since COVID, is that once everything kind of started shutting down, where I am, even though I'm an hour from New York City, we are still considered a New York City commuter town.
Oh yeah.
We have a bus in town, and that goes in every morning. It's a little under an hour if you're taking the bus in. But what ended up happening as offices started closing down, work arrangements changed. People said, oh, you know what? I'm only going in twice a week now. They started moving more out this way from east to west.
Okay.
So we had a lot of people moving from New York, all areas, not just the city, but the boroughs. So Staten Island, Long Island, New York, upstate New York, coming out this way. and a lot of people moving from Eastern Jersey, which is much more urban, to where I am, which is very rural.
Okay.
So a lot of people like either hadn't known about, so where I am is called Hunterdon County. They either hadn't known Hunterdon County existed, or they just said, you know what, that's too far. I commute to the city every day. But when it became I commute to the city twice a week, they were like, you know what, taxes are way cheaper out that way. And that's probably a relative term, because if I told you our taxes, you would probably fall over. But compared to New York City adjacent, we are a bargain. So
Okay.
we went through that as COVID started to take hold, which is, we mentioned before this, like 2021 was a massive year in real estate for me.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that's dying off a little bit and things are quite different. But
Yeah.
let's talk about that comparison a little bit. So the reason we kind of teed this up is you said that our markets are very different. Your market is going through a situation of too much inventory, would you say?
Yes. So I would say like we were kind of like, all right, so I'm going to put this in perspective of the previous economic crash. The hardest hit were Florida, California, Nevada, and Phoenix, Arizona. Like those were the areas that had super high appreciation. And so when things hit, people were upside down in their homes, things went south quickly in those areas. Texas historically had a very slow and steady appreciation, or we were flat. So we didn't have wild growth. We were just slow and steady. And so during that economic crash, we were the last kind of to go into the recession and one of the first to come out, because we were just steady,
Yeah.
And so going through this experience with COVID was kind of wild, because we were the new stars. Like everyone wanted to move here. Oh, Elon Musk, we have a Tesla, huge Tesla outside of our airport area. It's massive. So that was kind of the big first announcement that was in the works. And then I think one time I was talking to someone and they said like over 500 companies were coming here from California. And that is insane, because that's all the supporting companies of big companies as well. We had Oracle, Apple's here, IBM is here. We have a lot of big employers. Plus, since Austin is the capital of the state, we also have a lot of state agencies. We have universities. So there's just a very good mix of different jobs here. But since we had such a huge rise, meteoric rise, like some values were doubling. Like stuff that I had a hard time wrapping my head around. And it almost was making me depressed, because I was like, how are people going to afford to live here?
Yeah.
Like how's a first-time home buyer? I think the first time when I was like, what the hell is going on, is a house in Round Rock, which is the town south of us. There was a house listed for $350 and it sold for $170,000 over list.
Wow.
And I don't know if that was in 2020. Late 2020 or early, that was when I was like, what is happening?
That's like 50% over asking. Yeah, like that's
well,
outrageous.
like 350 is not a big home.
Right,
so
right.
Like, we were just like, oh my God, like everyone knew about it. And
so similar to what's happened in like San Francisco, Silicon Valley areas, where it's just completely unmanageable. You get a 3-bedroom ranch and it's over $1 million.
So I was so sad about that, because literally people that had started the process of moving here back in the day, I could brag about, look what you get in Texas for this amount. You can get an acre, you can do this, you can do that. And now I'm like, dang, now we're beginning to rival the expense of living in big cities. So since we had a huge rise during that time and huge appreciation, like a rocket ship, we're now experiencing the flip side. So now if you see articles that will say, top cities being impacted by the economic, by the downturn, or if you see a negative article about real estate, Austin's in it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because we're seeing the flip side of it. However, what most people say is if you were to look at our appreciation year over year in, 2010 to 2023, and if you were to take out 2020, 2021, and the beginning of 2022, and just kind of do the slow and steady, that's where we're going to end up when values kind of settle down, wherever they're going to settle down. So that's what and we have a ton of new construction. I don't think you do. So that's another factor, is we have a ton of building going on. So
most of the construction we have going on here is rentals.
Okay.
So there's some very specific like New Jersey problems up here. And one of them is, so again, where I am is, I would consider to be pretty rural. Like if I drive 10 minutes towards my house, it's very rural. Where I am is in town. This is a
Hmm.
town of about 2,500 people.
Oh,
So
wow.
like, yeah,
Okay.
it's a very small town. And, Hunterdon County, where I am, only has one city. And if you went to that quote unquote city, you would be like, this is not a city. But in the entire county, we have one city. So it's a very different type of area. But what I think is happening, as I mentioned, people don't generally retire here. So, for example, my parents live about 5 minutes from where I'm sitting. They've lived here since 1970. When they moved out here, it was farmland. Now
Yeah.
it's really not. It's although it's low populations in a lot of small towns, it's not farmland. It's just a lot of developments and whatnot. So their next step is like they could go to Pennsylvania or somewhere that has lower taxes, and that would have to be pretty deep into Pennsylvania, because if you just go
Mm,
just over the river, it's not going to change much. But then they're away from the family.
yeah.
Um, and they eventually want to sell their house because it's not appropriate for their age, their stairs and everything else. So what's the next option in this area? Pretty limited, especially if you don't have a huge budget. So that's why, one of the many reasons why, we're getting a lot of rental buildings going up where our aging population needs a place to live. So that's one of the things. I mean, we do have 55 plus outside of this area, but again, like for someone like my parents, they would be at least 45 minutes away.
Mm,
So it's there's not a lot of room, like new construction in terms of single family homes or bigger condo complexes that are going to be available for sale is extremely limited.
I'm curious why
So
not? Because if you're rural, is there land to develop or there's not really much land to develop?
there isn't much land to develop, and the biggest reason for that is the areas that are more rural are very restricted in terms of development. So,
Okay.
like for example, the town that I'm from, Pittstown, minimum lot size is in some parts of town 3 acres, and in other parts of town 7 acres.
Well,
So you can imagine most of those lots are claimed at this point.
got it.
And then if you wanted to get into subdividing and things like that, you have to stick to those parameters.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's
opportunities are pretty
limiting.
limited.
That's definitely
Yeah.
limiting. 3 acres. I thought Texans were like, so one thing I love about Jersey is some people kind of like when I say New York, people just imagine New York City rather than the Adirondack Mountains. And
Yeah.
I feel like when you hear Jersey, people think of the shore or the TV show
Yeah.
or the yucky parts that are near the city, close to the city that are very commercial and warehousey. Like Jersey is beautiful country, dairy cows,
We're
like
the Garden State.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you are, yes. And like even me, sometimes when we went up there to visit for my sister's wedding, it was in a beautiful area. And I was like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
reminds me of, is
Oh, did I lose you?
that me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Let me see. Let me check on my end. All right. Hopefully we didn't lose Jody. Oh, let's see here.
I think I'm
You
back.
there?
Yeah.
All right. You're good.
Okay.
No
Sorry.
worries. Yeah, no worries at all. Yeah, I mean, and that's like part of what's kind of fun about my TikTok is I'm hoping to dispel some of those impressions about New Jersey. Obviously, I'm kind of broadcasting to people that already know the area, but I know that over the past, really since the beginning of COVID, we've had so many people being introduced to the area. And, this is a bit of a polarizing subject around here, is because people, stuck in their ways out this way, and we have this pilgrimage of people coming in with different values and different ideas, and it can cause conflict sometimes. But I will say this, is that a lot of these people are forgetting this is the history of this area. When my
Oh, yeah.
parents moved here in 1970, they moved here from respectively Brooklyn and Scotch Plains, New Jersey, much more urban areas. Moved out this way because they could buy a nice house, taxes were reasonable, they could start thinking about raising a family. The public schools out here are very good. It's just happening again. Like it's
Yeah.
like the second wave of that. And from my perspective, I'm obviously of a little bit younger generation. I'm 43 years old, but speaking to people that have been here for 3 generations compared to me, we need it. Like
Yeah.
we need different options culturally, and one thing about this area is the food is just very limited. And judging by your TikTok, that's not a problem where you are.
No.
But so like, bringing in different demographics is just improving all these cultural aspects of this area, which to my generation is extremely appealing. So, you're always going to get a little bit of conflict when things are changing.
Well, I
But
mean, I we're in the same place. Like I've been in Georgetown for 20 years. So when we first came here, the downtown square, which I love passionately, was kind of dying. It was like antique shops and old
yes,
lady stuff. It was dry. They weren't able to have alcohol.
yeah,
So, and what was crazy, because just like a mile, west of the highway, Chili's and Applebee's could have alcohol. So why couldn't the square? So there were just a
right.
lot of things that worked, because again, the old guard didn't want things to change.
Yeah, we have a lot of that here too.
And we have a historic district, so they also keep that aspect of people developing or changing things, or what color they're going to paint their house or their front door, if they're going to
Yep.
tear down an old carport or whatever. There's a lot of aspects to that. But I laugh because our city Facebook page, anytime anyone posts anything, like we have a new grocery store opening. I've been here for 20 years waiting for the new grocery store to open, which in Texas is called HEB. It looks like Heb. And I got told when I bought my house 20 years ago that we were getting a new store pretty soon. I've waited 20 years. And so that store we've been shopping in is really small. We're finally going to get like a normal size store to me. And cue the complaints like in the face. Everyone's like, our traffic's bad. We don't have enough water, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
I miss old Georgetown. Like, it's just, of course. And part of me feels that way, but part of me is also like, well, if we don't have progress, we won't have these things, that then we're going to have to just keep commuting to go to places to do these things or buy these things. So I would rather keep the tax dollars in our town, in our city. I'd rather it be convenient, but I do definitely feel also the other side of it, which I do complain now about going across town.
Yeah.
Because it is a little bit of it. Like, I'm on the side of town where our square is, but on the other side of I-35, which is our major north-south, that's where the HEB is now. So I have to cross I-35 to get to the HEB. I know, first world problems, but there definitely is a lot more traffic. And because we have so much new construction, yesterday I went to a city that's 30 minutes west. It's called Liberty Hill. And the whole way it was just 18-wheelers, trucks with windows, cement trucks, like, because there's so much new construction, there's just all this big truck traffic. And on a road, the speed limit is 65, 70 miles an hour. That has a lot of neighborhoods turning off of it now. So it's, we're experiencing the growing pains too. Like, I get it, but I'm like you, I'm in the middle, I don't want to lose the charm of our town, and I don't think we will, but it's a change for people who've been here a long time and they don't like it sometimes.
There's that other consideration though, and something that you said that very much applies to this area is, like, if you don't at minimally evolve, then what is going to go away anyway, because it's not sustainable. Like, we have a town here called Flemington, which is famously where 100 years ago the Charles Lindbergh trial was. And so there's a couple historic elements to it, right? And one of them is a hotel where all the journalists stayed. And that hotel is so dilapidated, it's dangerous, it's falling over. And we had a big developer come in and wanted to take down the hotel, put in a small satellite campus for a college, some restaurants, bars. And this main street needs it so much because for the past 25, 30 years, that main street's dead.
Is that the TikTok you made the other day about the place that had like a variety? That was beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. I remember you commented on that. Yes, exactly.
I was like, this is hip and cool. Like, so I actually thought we were from a place that was bigger because of that. Like, when you start seeing your comments, I'm like, he just posted something.
So it's so needed in that area. And I've been telling people for the past 5 years, anticipating that it is coming. It was taking a little while because of legal battles and whatnot. But I knew it was coming. So I'm like, everyone buy near this. It's in your best interest as an investment or as your house or whatever it may be. You will benefit from buying there. But it's finally kicked off. It went through years of legal troubles because of what you just said. There was a group of people in place that said, we're not knocking over that hotel. It's a historic hotel. Now it is, but it's not functional. It's falling over, and we're not taking down the courthouse. It's just the hotel across the street. And they finally decided to, the one element that kind of took it to the finish line was that the developer said, you know what, I will keep the facade of the hotel. We will fix it at our
Oh,
expense.
nice.
And
Okay.
then in addition, we'll have the development behind it. So it did get there, but really like, and the town I'm in, Clinton, has gone through different phases of same thing you said. It was like the
Hmm.
downtown area just needs a little bit of life injected to it.
Hmm.
Also a dry town for the most part. I think there's 2 liquor licenses in town. And same kind of thing is like, there just needs to be a little rejuvenation, and you have to just kind of embrace that, or it's going away. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to just stay like that.
I mean, I will say, like, if I left out a key piece, which is, I think, and it was pretty early when I got my license, they finally passed law that allowed businesses to open up and serve. And so that's what revitalized. Because here was the thing: restaurants were opening up, but you're stacking the cards against them if they can't serve beer,
Yes.
wine, or liquor. And so it wasn't a fair playing field. And so I was like, and now, like, I remember back in the day, things would open and close, open, and it was kind of
Yes.
depressing. And
Yeah.
now things are thriving.
Yeah. Did I
Yep.
lose you?
Oh, shoot.
I hear you again.
Sorry.
You're back. No worries.
Yeah, but I mean,
Um,
like, our town, like, is such a big tourist place now that a lot of people complain. They're like, I don't know anybody here. Like, because usually you walk around, like, a lot of my friends jokingly say I'm the mayor of Georgetown because if I
yeah.
walk around downtown, I'm going to know everybody,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or a lot of people. And that's, so they don't like it when there's new people, but I do, because I know that's helping our businesses. It's
100%.
helping, it's helping everything. And it makes me proud to see our town has evolved and grow. And I've been here for 20 years, to see that happen. So it's been nice, but it is changing. But again, I'm okay with it. It's, to me, I want people to experience and enjoy Georgetown like I do.
I agree. And I think, what I always remind people is, so I've lived in this town with the exception of going to college and then living the year after college. I was down in Virginia. But with the exception of that 5-year period or 6-year period, I've lived here all my life,
Oh, wow.
5 minutes from where I'm sitting.
Okay.
So same thing. If I go downtown, I'm guaranteed to see people I know, but also the people I've met that have moved here and set up businesses and restaurants, that I really love, that are great additions to this area and really love it here. Because
Yeah.
what we go through is a lot of people that moved here from Eastern Jersey, which is just not quite as charming. They have all the amenities, but it's just not quite as charming. They
Yes.
move here and they just love it. So they
Yeah.
instantly ingrain themselves in the local area. And I think that that's fantastic. And that we need new people who love this area for it
Yeah.
to be successful. So that's really kind of what we're going through. But yeah, I mean, it's always changing, and I think it has to be evolving on some level, because the same thing, the main streets were just not doing well with the legacy stores that are tired. And it's interesting you said about the liquor laws, because we're actually going through that right now. So we've had
Mhm.
the governor here in our little tiny small town 2 times now to discuss New Jersey's 90-year-old liquor license laws, because they are so archaic, and we're going through the exact same thing.
It's ridiculous because there was a town north of us that still had something going on where you had to, I don't remember what it was. It's something ridiculous, like you had to pay a fee for a license to drink or something. I don't know. Again, it's archaic, and our town, we still aren't wild. I like to joke whenever I'm out with friends, that if we stay out till 10 o'clock in Georgetown, it's like midnight in Austin,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we do shut down earlier out
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
And Round Rock is the middleman. They're getting a little wild. They're down.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
their downtown is fun. They have a ton. Round Rock has a ton of live music. They have a piano bar. Like we're getting stuff that's not. We don't have to go all the way downtown Austin anymore. We can do stuff north of Austin and still have.
And how far are you from downtown Austin?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. 30 minutes. Like 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Well,
That's great.
30. I should say 30 miles ish, but
Yeah, yeah.
in normal traffic, it should be about 30 minutes or so, give or
Yeah,
take.
yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So so I mean, if you like, listings are sitting a bit longer in your market for sure.
Yes.
So what are you, and again, you can keep it at a super high level, because we don't want to bore people to death with each of our vast real estate knowledge, but like what are the challenges that are unique to people in your market, and like how are you kind of addressing those challenges?
So what's interesting is with a recent listing, my theory was, hey, every time I'm looking at a market analysis, the majority of what I'm seeing is new construction because it's all around us. So
Yeah.
my theory is that people are just going new construction.
Yeah.
Well, recently we've had two people tell us that we were in the top two being considered. And I was bold enough to ask, like, hey, what's your what is your other option? And both of them were new construction.
Yeah.
One was in Round Rock, one was in Georgetown. But yeah, so I would say the challenge is like we have to be super responsive in this market and things sometimes change quickly. So it's just having a house be in the right condition when it hits the market instead of working to kind of catch up, because that's going to
Yes.
work. That's going to work against you. And again, like back in 07, I mean, in 08, the lesson I learned is I used to tell people, we need to be perfection. This needs to look like a model home. Like
Yeah.
I used to do that. And then things shifted so wildly the last couple of years. And then when the market shifted wildly again last year in like June, we had to kind of go back to the old playbook of what I used
Definitely.
to do of like, hey, this needs to be pristine and it needs to be as updated as you can make it. And by updated, I don't mean major remodels, but
If
carpets
you want
clean.
top dollar, you have to look top dollar.
It just needs to be move-in ready. You don't want people to look at it and go, this feels like an older home. Like, I mean, I just went out and looked at new homes yesterday and I told the salesperson, I'm like, I want a new house. She
Yeah.
goes, that's one of the battles we face. Well, we over here, because can look at a million new homes over here. And
Yeah.
she said, all the salespeople I know live in a new house because we're in these homes all day and they're so pretty. And, we see the new neighborhoods opening up. So, yeah, so it would just be like, that's our competition right now. And builders have deeper pockets to offer
Yeah.
incentives. So that's the struggle is, people went through the meteoric rise and now those numbers are on their brain, but the numbers need to be coming down to where we are now,
Yes.
And I'm really proactive too in like looking at inventory and taking my sellers out to look at inventory because I want them to look through the eyes of a buyer of, hey, if you
Yeah.
had to make a choice, how does your house stack up? Because sometimes we come in our house every day, we don't have fresh eyes. So you need to kind of like try to close your eyes and come in like you're seeing everything for the first time. And
Yeah.
you'll have a different perspective.
That's a really interesting strategy. It's actually the first time I've ever heard someone mention that, of taking your sellers out to look at current inventory.
Yeah.
That's really smart. I think that's something that could potentially help here because we kind of have the opposite problem up here. First of all, inventory is extremely limited. Like the town I'm sitting in, 1 to 5 listings at any given time.
Oof.
We went through a period last year where we had like 3 months where there was literally 0 listings in this town.
How far out do you go? Because like I could go to south of Austin and I have, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, because of the situation here, I definitely, especially as a listing agent, I will travel. That's for sure.
yeah.
So at least an hour,
Okay.
which really makes me cover most of New Jersey, except for maybe the very south and very north tips. But with the inventory situation is multiple offers on everything.
Yeah.
And it's fluctuated a bit. So here in Hunterdon, where I'm sitting, a little more rural, demand is a little bit lower. But if you go to any of the surrounding counties, it is much more population dense. I'm sure you probably know this, but New Jersey is in the country the most population dense place in anywhere, but it's not in this county, it's in the surrounding counties. So if you go to those counties, 15 to 20 offers on everything, people throwing absurd amounts of money at it. So the strategy for my buyers really is really the agent relationships is huge.
Yes.
So, when I get offers, I don't know, in Texas, do you guys write the offers or do you write like an intent to buy? Like, do you give them the whole contract right away?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do for the most part too, although there are parts of New Jersey that don't do that. So what you end up with is a mix of the two, which is never quite ideal. When I have to call an agent and say, hey, I just so you know, for your information, you're giving me an email with your intent to purchase, no signatures, no nothing. From the other 15 offers, I have full contracts with signatures and everything else. Yeah.
It's not, we will sometimes counter verbally, meaning like, I don't always
Yeah. Oh, sure.
scratch out an initial or redo a contract. We might go back and forth verbally or
same here,
like via text or email until we finalize. And then someone will type up a clean contract and when everyone signs it.
Yeah.
But if you're presenting an offer, it's on a contract and you have a lender pre-approval. And before I even write the contract, I will call the listing agent and say, hey, what terms are your seller looking for? Do they
Of
need a
course.
lease? Do they need a lease back? Is
Yeah.
price more important? What
Yes.
closing date do they want? Because and in your situation, like if it were a seller's market, I want to cater this offer to be really attractive to the seller, and I want to give them whatever the heck they want, like
100%. Yeah.
to make it easy.
So that's what we're dealing with for sure. So speaking as a listing agent, when I'm a listing agent, the offers I'm getting vary from, if you get 16 offers, a lot of them are going to look the same, right? In terms of the terms. But if I get, the top 4 offers, which all look pretty similar, if 2 of the agents have never talked to me, they're off on their closing date, they didn't address the use and occupancy or whatever we're looking to do.
Yeah.
Am I going to call and negotiate with them? Maybe. Presenting all the offers to my sellers, but I say, hey, I do have to tell you, I've never talked to this agent. I have no relationship. I do know these other 2 they've called. They're very sharp. I feel very comfortable with them. And, my seller's most likely to say, all right, well, let's negotiate with those 2. But I get stuff in my inbox all the time. I'm like, who is this coming from? I've never even seen this person. I mean, I probably saw that they showed the house, but maybe not, because their clients might have just gone to my open house. And I'm like, I have no idea what this offer is. So that's like such a terrible way to approach things. And what's interesting about that is, like, I'm telling my people, like, I'll run into friends that I know locally that, listen, I'm 43 years old. My friends have other friends that are realtors. So I'm not getting upset if one of my friends is using a different realtor. But when they tell me that they've put in 12 offers and they still haven't gotten a house, I'm like, listen, I know it's bad, but it's not that bad. Like, if you've put in 12 without getting something needs to be assessed.
So quick question. Do you guys have buyer agency in New Jersey?
Optional.
Okay.
Yeah. And I generally, as a rule, wait until we've written one offer to use it. I would say over the past 4 years, for like the first 3 years of my career, I didn't use it once, having a signed buyer's agency agreement.
Okay. Well,
it's pretty rare.
I understand that it can be implied, but I'm big on doing a buyer consultation. So when we sit down and I kind of go over the process, I just I straightforward lay out, like, hey, this is how you hire me. It's like a listing agreement, but for a buyer. And because, typically the seller's paying my fee, this is how I'm able to give you my opinion and advise you versus just being a neutral party.
Yeah.
Because it protects the buyer. But I always tell people too, like, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire if we don't get along, or I only want to work with people one of my huge values is collaboration. So I want to work with people, not against them. So if we want to part ways, you can tell me to kick rocks.
Yes. Yeah.
And that doesn't happen, but I want people to feel like, hey, this is just between you and I, but I also do need this for my brokerage. So, let's go over all the paperwork, and I load them up with paper, like here we have a general notice and information to a buyer. We have a thing about insurance. We have a thing about inspections. So I just try to give them all that stuff up front.
Yeah. So I do a fair amount of that as well. I always offer buyer's consultation. I know that the people that take my offer are going to be good clients, and the people that turn me down, I may lose because they're just like, we get a lot of realtor hopping because the market, again, is so frantic.
Interesting.
And what's funny is, like, people don't really understand the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, a lot of people will register on my website, and then I'll get in touch with them. They're like, oh, you know what? I just want to see what listings you have available. And I'm like, well, I have the same listings available that Joe Smith has available, and everyone else. They just don't really understand the process necessarily. So, like you said, I do occasionally, like, the reason I kind of very often wait till we've written an offer is, like, I don't like to ask for that on the first date kind of situation.
Yeah.
Is like, I like to see if I'm even comfortable, see if they're qualified, kind of get through that early process, and then say, hey, look, I'd really like to, continue working with you. Let's talk about this agency agreement. I do tell people all the time, though, quite frankly, that those are the people that are going to get rewarded, because I'm much more loyal to them. I have my eyes open for them all the time.
Agreed. Well, and it's a
much different relationship.
Well, it's a mutual relationship. That's why I tell them, I was like, listen, in this, it says that my job now is to look for a house. I said, and so once I get a feel for what you're looking for, I'm going to be out there proactively looking. And in the down market, that would even be canvassing a neighborhood, trying to find anyone who's thinking about selling for your buyer. So but I said, but then the ask on your part is to be loyal to me. So if you see a for sale by owner, or if you walk into a new construction, you contact me, or you tell them I have a realtor and hand them my card. So it's, I said that way, they can communicate through me, and or if they go into an open house, that way the person at the open house isn't bugging you. Like I had a couple come through my open house, and the first question I always ask is, are you a neighbor, or are you out looking for a home for yourself? And then if they say they're looking, I was like, oh, are you working with a realtor? And if they say yes, I say, who is it? Because sometimes I may know them, sometimes I don't. But if I have them register, I get their realtor's info, and I don't contact them directly. I contact their realtor.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think like, again, about the realtor hopping. So like, I don't know if you get a lot of like, Zillow, like not that you pay for Zillow leads, but if you get Zillow calls, especially on your listing. But like, so that happens a lot up here, and, people, or sign calls, like you have a listing and you get a sign call, and they say, oh, I saw your house. And by the way, this house has been under contract for like a week, but because they don't have an agent, they just like, they don't understand the process at all. So they're calling me, hey, I saw your listing over in, 123 Main Street. And I'm like, oh yeah, unfortunately, we're under contract and it's no longer available. But let me ask you, are you working with a buying agent? And they're like, oh, no. We only go through listing agents. I'm like,
that's a disadvantage.
That's a bit of a miss. Yeah.
And what's funny is like you've been talking about that on your TikTok, and I was like, why is he talking about that? So
hot topic up here.
I didn't realize it was a hot issue for y'all. So that makes more sense now.
Yeah. There's some perception there that there's going to be a discount, or they'll have a leg up, or whatever the situation is. And like, honestly, do you have dual agency in Texas?
We can. It's not recommended. I honestly, if someone were to come to me, I would explain to them the way it works.
Yeah.
Because both parties have to agree to basically like not have representation. And I tell people is I go from being a coach to a referee. And is that what you want? Like the outcome is going to kind of be the same. No one's going to really save any money. I make more money. Like
I tell them I become a project manager. That's what happens.
To me, I would almost rather, if someone calls me off a sign, in all my years of doing real estate, I've done one dual agent, or one, we call it intermediary. I've done one intermediary. And typically I will kind of advise people, or I'll even recommend them to another realtor, because I would rather they have their own representation, because that just makes it cleaner to me. That everyone has, well, that's what I tell people. I'm like, hey, if you were going to court, would you want, and you could have a free attorney, are you going to take the attorney, or are you going to represent yourself? And things are constantly changing here, and I'm in the business and I look at this stuff every day. So if you haven't bought or sold a house in 10 years, are you going to be fully up to speed on what needs to happen? It's a lot. And y'all's contract to me is crazy, because I don't know how many pages it is. It just stood out to me that every single line 13. Had a number. Okay, that's our same as ours. It was just all the lines having a number. I thought was a lot. And then where my little sister sold her house, they had a lot of regulations through the city of things they had to do before they could even put the house on the market. And I don't remember. It was like having a fire extinguisher mounted in their basement or something. And I was like, what? Texas is the Wild West. We have so little regulation. All my clients that move here are like, no one looks at this. I'm like, no. Does anyone look at this?
I think like anyone from New Jersey would 100% agree with you. That is definitely where we are probably the furthest apart in the country in that regard. Of Texas is the Wild West, and we are definitely rules and regulations on everything.
Yeah, your government
it's a way of life that like we get used to, but we're very aware of it for sure. Like everything, like in your town and county and state and everything is rules and regulations.
I will say I would almost rather everyone meet in the middle, because I think we need a little bit more regulation. Like honestly, our contractors aren't even, there's not an entity statewide over contractors. There is over plumbing, electrical, and HVAC and irrigation, but general contractors, there is no.
Wow, that's something.
There's no supervision, and to me that is
hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah, wow. And so and so like when I get people here from California, because one of my good friends was moving here from California, and she said, well, do you have this type of? I was like, we have one option period for people to do all their due diligence. There is no like roof inspection period. This inspection, like she had different inspection periods for everything in California. So it's just very different than how we do it here.
Yeah.
But we do have a period here where a buyer can back out for any reason and get their money back if it's on a reason.
Same here. That's
Yeah.
like our attorney review period. So it's,
Yeah.
minimum 3 days mandatory in New Jersey. Now you can get out of that early with both attorneys signing off. So like if you're in a situation where you get an offer accepted on a very hot property and buyer and seller are very comfortable, you can say, all right, let's get this out of attorney review in 1 day. As long as both attorneys say, yep, I'm good with this contract, you can be out in 1 day. It's just a minimum of 3 days for the people that choose not to use an attorney. They need to have that 3-day window in order for that contract to be valid. So, and then sometimes it can extend if there's like a challenge in the transaction. There's something was discovered or there's a septic that needs to be repaired.
I was going to ask, like, when do you do inspections? Are you supposed to do it during that 3 days?
No. So here you would do inspections once you're under contract.
Okay.
So once that contract's been signed off, immediately goes into inspections.
Okay.
And then, all the contingencies as far as like killing the contract would be revolving around inspections and mortgage. That's your main contingencies. But the only other thing I was going to say up here is, so as a listing agent, we see this all the time, but when we are up here in this 15 to 20 offer situation, and I just told you as a listing agent, just for lack of a better term, the garbage that shows up in my inbox, incomplete contracts, not having considered the terms that were favorable for the sellers, all kinds of mistakes. And then those people calling me and having the wrong conversations and everything. And then you have your subset of agents that you're like, man, I hope I can work with this agent because everything looks great. Their terms are off. But we have the right to call those other agents back and be like, we would love to work with you. We just need you to come up a little bit or whatever the case may be. That is the part that I think it's a little bit become my mission on TikTok to kind of get those points out to consumers, because I think that is one of the most overlooked in selecting a realtor, whether you're buying or selling, is like, if you go the Zillow route and you just say, someone finds a house on Zillow, they like it, they say request a tour, and they end up with whoever, like any random realtor.
Well, plus, how responsive are those realtors? Are they jumping to go show them or not? Like, that's
some of them, because they're paying Zillow so much to be in that spot. So like you get a call and it says, Zillow customer service, and that's them connecting you. So, and they're also probably not very busy,
Okay.
So, but if you call, like if you Google like best realtor in Hunterdon County, and you just pick, 5 of them, and you start reading reviews and like maybe watch some of their content or whatever and say, yeah, I'd work with this guy. Obviously that's a much better process, but on the tail end, when you're putting in the offers, that's what I keep saying is like, ask your realtor how they submit offers. Like, are you comfortable with their strategy? And if they're like, oh, I don't know, I take the New Jersey contract and I send it off and everything's done via email, and you're like, that's it. But if you ask me, I'm going to say, all right, well, here's my, 5-step formula for how I do it, which involves video. And like, there's a whole submission process, to the point of where I've been complimented on my offer. Hey, we're not going to take your offer, but great offer. Like, that kind of, like, I'm confident I did what I could given the resources I had for that offer, that I gave my best case. And my big thing is like, get me in the top 3 or 4. And I'll be one of those 2 agents that they're calling back and say, we would love to work with you. We just need to make a couple adjustments here.
Yeah.
And I think that's that thing that consumers miss. They just think realtor is a necessary evil. I'll just get whatever, or whoever's cheapest.
You're giving me a lot of content ideas. Like, this conversation is like fruitful because I'm thinking about things that we should talk about to educate the public, like you said. How are you doing? Are you sending video emails through BombBomb or Loom or something?
I used to use BombBomb for video emails. I was finding that there were some tech issues there as far as the percentage that we're actually getting to my audience.
Oh, okay.
I really like BombBomb as an outlet, but I will say this too, is that when I see like, we have like an internal group here for our KW office, and like people will put up like a 30-second video instead of typing out a message. I will say a lot of times I'm like, I'd rather would just read the message right now than watch the 30-second video.
Yeah.
So I'm a little conflicted on that, but I will say that, obviously you and I are aligned on this because this is how we met, but I will say that video is without a doubt the way to move. It's just some usages I find better than others. But in terms of like when I send in offers, so they'll get a video that looks exactly like the screen, literally exactly the same. that you're seeing right now. And it's me just introducing myself to the other agent, saying very little about my buyers to not cause any sort of fair housing issues. Again, all the rules and regulations that we have to comply with here in New Jersey.
Same.
But just introducing myself, very brief, usually about 3 minutes, talking about our offer, and basically saying at the end, listen, if this is close enough, let us know and give me a call. And I'm sure we can work it out.
Yeah.
And just saying I'm easy to work with. Smooth transaction is always my goal. Everyone wins. Great. But of all the years I've been taking offers, I mean, I've probably taken, I don't know, 500 offers in my career from other agents. I've seen one other video.
I think it can be powerful. All right. So, like you're talking about appropriate time to use it. Like the way I feel about texting is that should be for short or logistical things. Email, sometimes it's going to be a long winded email. The 60-second video is shorter. Like, you know, that's a lot for people to read. Sometimes
the dreaded wall of text.
Yeah. Sometimes I will do a little bit of both. Like I might bullet point and then send a video, but I think it goes a long way in this world where we're losing personal communication for people to see you, hear your tone, see the body language. And I think it just puts a human face to what's become.
100% agree.
Like you just said, 500. Like, and I ask my clients right away, I'm like, what, you know, whenever I'm working with a buyer or seller, I'm like, what's your preferred form of communication? They tell me, you know, texting, email, calling, whatever. And I say, are you open to, is it okay if I send you videos to communicate important news? Because sometimes I can't, you know, I can send a video to both parties, like husband and wife, you know, or something like that if I have something to say, or I'll do a combination like we just said of like, I might type out an email, but I might also send them a little video blurb too, to kind of reiterate certain things just so they're hearing it in my voice. Yeah, so I love to use video. And I think that's one great thing that both of us are doing right now is getting more comfortable with video. I also use Marco Polo, which is like a texting app. I've heard some people talk about Voxer, it's a voice app. So it's not video, but it's still, I think, keeps that personal connection.
Yeah.
And I just heard, was it Apple? I think with their latest launch, they were talking about if someone sends you a video, I don't remember how they were saying it. If someone's trying to FaceTime you and they can leave a FaceTime message now, but it will begin to type it out as they're leaving it. So you can decide whether or not you want to pick it up. Or I don't remember. It was something, but they're kind of helping to like bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Of, yeah, we want this, but we also want the text. You know?
It's just like think about it at the most like granular level is like, you know, for us, from a business standpoint, like if you're trying to, obviously we're all trying to maintain a sphere and a group of past clients that will feed our business for years to come. And that, again, everybody wins. They feel like you're their person in Texas. Like, oh my God, if you're buying a house, you have to talk to Jody. That's what we're all striving for. And it's a genuine thing. It's not meant to be like a, you know, hustle or anything. It's meant to be like, no, I love what I do. And I want to be your guy. I want to be your real estate guy, no matter what. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we strive for that. And video is really a way to remind people like, this is me. Like, remember me, we bought a house together 3 years ago, instead of the emails and texts, because that's not a good reminder. So I think that's the thing. And like, again, like going back to equating it to like an open house or a client event or something, like that's a very brief amount of time you get to have that FaceTime. Yeah. But things like TikTok is just, here's me, take it or leave it, but you get to show it to so many people at once. Yeah. And I do think it comes from a genuine place. Look, this is me. Would you like to work with me? Great. Raise your hand. I'll work with you. And I think like, again, within the industry, like I said, that's why I include a video with my offer, is because I would love to be getting these videos from agents and just getting a little bit of a feel like I feel very comfortable with this person, because I'm just telling my seller who I'm comfortable with. I'm not making any decisions. Yeah. I'm just saying, hey, this agent's super sharp, laid back, you know, is going to coach their clients properly. That's a big one. They're not going to say anything crazy controversial to their clients. Like, oh my God, you got to ask for this paint and inspection. Like, oh God, here we go. The roof is, you know, oh, this roof's going to need to be replaced in 5 years. You got to ask for that. Like crazy stuff that I want to know that's not going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I just think it's nice to get into this realm where we're actually increasing personal connections
Yeah,
via
agreed.
tech. Yeah. So, yeah, it's an interesting time to be in real estate. Obviously, like I said, this is how we met. So I think it's interesting that we're both doing it. I know, I love it. I really love the increased engagement that I've gotten that we talked about just prior to getting on the call. But I think it's moving closer to how I want to do business. Like, here I
Yeah,
am. Would you like to do business with me? Yes or no? And
agreed.
then, moving on. So, beats cold calling and door knocking. That's for sure.
No, thank you. Can't like
Yeah, I
it.
know. And like, even like phone time, like, like I think you said you're naturally an introvert as well. And I am too. So like when I have
Actually,
to start,
I'm
you're
on the
somewhere
cusp.
in the middle.
I'm on the cusp. I think I was probably more extroverted back in the day, and as I became an empty nester, I realized I like alone time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
half-half.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like I like talking about real estate, but like would I prefer to be talking about real estate or just like sitting down doing a task at my computer? I'd probably prefer to just have some quiet time, but um calling past clients and strangers and like going through that routine, I
Mhm.
much prefer the video. Like,
I think,
even
well, it's more considerate because it's also, I mean, to me, all right, so actually I had this talk with my adult son. His girlfriend recently moved out of state, and he was saying it was challenging communicating because she wanted to connect at the end of the day. He's tired at the end of the day after work. He wants to chill. He wants to talk to her, but he also is like, I'm part of me wants this, part of me wants that. And I was like, well, why don't you start Marco Poloing each other? And he's like, I hadn't thought about that. And so that way she can share parts of her day with you. You can share parts of your day with her when it's
yeah.
convenient for each of you.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we
Meet
have
meet the other person where they are.
yeah, instead of we
Yeah.
have to talk at 7 o'clock for 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and this is honestly, this is how I've kept communication with when my sister was in Jersey and my other sister was here with 3 kids. My younger sister has 2. I have 1. This was how the 3 of us stayed in communication for years,
Yeah.
and now that Carrie and I are both here and my older sister's in Atlanta, this is still how we stay in communication because we have a group Marco Polo.
Yeah.
So, we can see each other, we can show each other certain things. Like, to me, it's just a great way of staying connected. Like, technology can help us stay connected.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And
So
I think like, so you have that background of being like, this is a way that works. And now like you're equating it to your real estate business and saying, well,
yeah.
I can meet clients where they are. When they sit down later and have some time to peruse TikTok, they'll be like, oh, look
Yeah.
at this interesting 20-second video from Jody. So yeah, I totally agree. I think I really am going to kind of hang in there with it and hope that, if I keep at it, that people will just decide whether or not to do business with me
I think,
and continue to just have a track record that like, I always told people like sometimes people get into this game a little too early. So like, let's talk about new agents. They've sold 1 or 2 houses and then they go all in on social media. And it's like, that's great. So if you had someone that saw you, they'd be like, okay, that looks interesting. I might want to work with this agent. Let me just Google them real quick. And then they're like, oh, this person sold like 1 or 2 houses. Like, it kind of stops there. So like, I think you and I have a specific advantage is we have a track record too.
yeah.
So like, I think once you have a little bit of a track record and the credentials, and then on top of it, you say, hey guys, here I am. Would you like to do business with me? I think that's like the sauce that gets it working. And I think that's why I'm very happy to kind of be pursuing the
Oh,
avenue and letting people meet me and
yeah.
saying, if you'd like to do business with me, then, raise your hand.
I will say one final thing. Like, I feel like you and I are kind of, again, in that middle area of the young or new agents and the maybe really older seasoned agents. Like, I joke,
Agreed.
the further north you go away from Austin, the older the agents get and the less tech
Yeah.
savvy they are. Like,
Yes.
no disrespect. It's just a fact. Like, it's more rural. So to me, if I wanted to be sassy, part of me would be like, does your agent even use video? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
like, I mean, because this is the primary way that people like to receive their information now when they're looking at
Yeah.
stuff. So I think we're kind of in this perfect sweet spot of we're hip and cool enough that we're trying new things and
Yeah.
super open to them. And I'll be honest, like I haven't gotten any clients from it yet, but like we were talking about, I'm using that content on my other platforms. And so it is raising my visibility with my sphere. So
yes,
that's still very relevant because they see me out working, they see me doing things. And I had multiple people comment like, "Oh my God, your social media lately is on fire."
Me too. 100%.
Yeah. So for me, it's so, I know it'll all work out. So stay with it. I'm going to stay with it. I like that we kind of got in at the same time. So we're kind of like cheering each other on and
yeah. Absolutely.
share our wins as we go.
Yeah. So before we part, is there anything you'd like to promote, or where can people find you, or anything you'd like to say?
This is a confession. I don't have a website because I have been so relationship based, and one of my desires is I need to get an admin to kind of organize all the back end stuff.
Sure.
But I am on social media. So if you just type in my name, Jody Garcia, Georgetown, Texas Realtor, my stuff will pop up. Probably my Facebook business page. I'm on Instagram or TikTok. So any of the social media is where you'll find me. Great. And yeah, I mean, I share my life. I don't, like plants, my family, cats, my town. That's my life.
Yeah. That's great. I'm also a cat owner, and
I'm
proud of it.
That's a green flag, Craig. Love it.
Yeah. It's funny because I did one video that was featuring my cat, and it was one of my most well-performing videos. I'm like,
I don't think I saw that.
Cat off.
Did I see that one? I'm gonna have to go look for it.
It's like a cap cut with Britney Spears and my cat. Yeah, check it out for sure.
Yeah, I think that stuff goes viral on TikTok. Like,
yeah, it's very funny.
Guys who like Taylor Swift or have cats, they're good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I appreciate it. We definitely didn't plan to be on for an hour, but all very interesting. And, I really appreciate it. We'll check in with you, sometime in the future and talk about the market, but thanks again. And always a pleasure.
Yes, this was fun. Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, Jody.
Right. Bye-bye.
All right. So that was Jody Garcia. That definitely went on much longer than we anticipated, which is totally fine. I think Jody's super sharp. And again, we met in an online group where we both are in a coaching group together. And I just thought she would be a great match. And also just talking about these two extremely different markets was it's interesting because when I hear about an influx of inventory, it's fascinating to me because New Jersey is so far away from that. So, but hope you all enjoyed. I will cut it off at this point since we're well over an hour in. But thank you so much. If you have anything you'd like us to discuss in the future, please just go ahead and comment on whatever platform you're watching this on. And thanks to all the new subscribers. Much, much appreciated. And we'll see you all soon. Have a great weekend. Take care.